Here are the top stories for today, August 21st, 2020. The Senate ratifies the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act or Bayanihan 2, while the House prepares to ratify it by August. The Land Transportation Office is set to allow drivers with clean records to have 10-year licenses. Malacanang says it will let legal process take its course in the killing of 4 military officers by cops in Sulu. And a seafarer in Pangasinan turns to mushroom farming for his family amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Senate has ratified the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the Bayanihan to Recover as One or Bayanihan 2 bill. The bill is the country's COVID-19 response and recovery plan. Senator Sonny Angara, who led the Senate to the bicameral conference, said Bayanihan 2 allocates 165.5 billion pesos to address the effects of the pandemic. Of the amount, 140 billion pesos is regular appropriation and 25.5 billion pesos is standby fund. Angara said the Senate and House panel agreed to fund, among others, the construction of isolation and quarantine facilities and field hospitals, assistance for displaced workers, procurement of vaccines and COVID-19 testing, procurement of personal protective equipment, face masks, face shields, and others, education and transportation. Meanwhile, Deputy Speaker El Rey Villafuerte, also a member of the BICAM panel, said the House of Representatives will ratify the proposed measure on Monday next week. The enrolled bill will then be transmitted to President Duterte for his signature. Malacanang rejected the proposed privatization of the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, saying this would defeat the state's insurer's purpose of providing affordable and accessible health care services to all Filipino citizens. This after Marikina City Representative Stella Kimbo filed House Bill 7429 authorizing the President to abolish or reorganize PhilHealth.
Kaya po yan nasa ilalim ng gobyerno dahil ang pagbigay po ng kalusugan ay isang karapatan ng taong bayan at obligasyon ng Estado. Kapag binigay po yan sa private na mga kumpanya, insurance po yan. At nakikita naman natin na yung scheme ng insurance ay hindi gumagana, lalong-lalo na sa lugar na gaya ng Estados Unidos na talagang ang mga mahihirap hindi po kaya bayaran ang paggagamot dahil wala po silang mga insurance. So sa paningin ko po as the primary author of the Universal Healthcare Law, kabaliktaran po ang objective natin. Kaya po linagay natin sa gobyerno yan dahil katungkulan ng gobyerno yan dapat bigyan ng katuparan. At kampante po ang presidente na given the composition and the integrity of the individuals behind the task force, lahat po ng may sala ay hindi lang masususpend, kung hindi masususpend ay madidismiss at makakasuhan ng kasong kriminal.
Private health workers will now receive 10,000 pesos COVID-19 special risk allowance under the proposed Bayanihan to Recover as One Act or Bayanihan 2. Under the Bayanihan 2 bill, a total of 10.5 billion pesos shall be allocated in various compensations for medical frontliners, including a special risk allowance for both public and private healthcare workers who are treating COVID-19 patients. Aside from the tax-free special allowance, they will also receive life insurance, accommodation, transportation, and meals for the duration of the pandemic. There will also be a 100,000 peso allotment for those who have contracted severe COVID-19 infection while in the line of duty from February 1, 2020 onwards. Health workers with existing contracts are now allowed to leave the country. This after the IATF-EID said they would take into consideration the nurses' appeals to grant exemptions to medical professionals with existing employment contracts.
Yung mga health professionals na meron na silang mga OEC issued po ng POEA at yung meron na pong verified employment contract as of March 8, 2020 ay po pwede pong lumabas ng bansa. Pwede rin pong lumabas ng bansa ang mga balik manggagawa o yung mga nagbabakasyon lamang sa Pilipinas at matagal na pong nagtatrabaho sa abroad. sakop pa rin po ang pagde-deploy abroad ng lahat ng mga health professionals kung wala po silang dokumento on or before March 8, 2020.
The PCOO's priority policies, which include the Freedom of Information Bill and the Media Workers Welfare Bill, have recently earned more support from legislators in the Congress and Senate. The Media Workers Welfare Bill seeks to grant more accessible opportunities for media workers in the availment of housing programs, regular employment, job security, and health benefits. The proposed bill was submitted to Congress in early 2019 and sponsored by the Anti-Crime and Terrorism Community Involvement and Support or ACT CIS party list. The FOI bill, on the other hand, seeks to expand the scope of open governance by directing agencies to disclose information on projects and other matters that involve public interest. PCOO Assistant Secretary Chris Ablan said they continuously promote FOI through various communications and partnership initiatives, including the conduct of capacity-building programs for local government units. His team will launch the first virtual FOI conference next week. There will also be an FOI workshop for librarians with pilot webinar sessions on September 11 and October 16. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar lauded these developments, saying he remains optimistic that these policies will be heard and given a chance soon. Zamboanga del Norte reserved the 200-hectare plantation area in Calawit for the construction of resettlement village. This is for the first 200 families who are coming home from Metro Manila under the government's Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program or BP2. Secretary Emmanuel Piñol of the Mindanao Development Authority said the agency turned over 500,000 pesos as support fund for the survey of the proposed BP2 site. Piñol said the families to be selected for the Calawit resettlement will be those who would be willing to till the land and get involved with agriculture. Each family will be given a house and the whole community will work as one in undertaking agricultural production. Meanwhile, the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has adopted the local government unit's management of returning residents. The IATF-EID approved Resolution 65, declaring as a national policy the directive to all provincial governors, city and municipal mayors, and village executives to accept, receive, and undertake all necessary actions to manage returning residents of their respective jurisdictions. The latest decision came after the national government's send-off program for returning locally stranded individuals was heavily criticized due to the supposed failure to observe strict safe physical distancing. More stations and buses are now available on EDSA Busway as public transportation resumes in Metro Manila. The Department of Transportation said there are already 15 operational stations available on the EDSA Busway, plied by 284 buses. The DOTR has also delivered 2,407 concrete to the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority. Assistant Secretary for Road Transport Steve Pastor said the EDSA busway, through its exclusive use of the median lanes, would reduce the previous 61 city bus routes in EDSA to only 30 and reduce the previous 3,350 buses to only 550. Meanwhile, DOTR Assistant Secretary Goddess Hope Libiran said HM Transit have deployed 3 units of buses with doors placed on both left and right sides, enabling drop-off passengers at the curbside for both outer and median lanes. She said the new buses are part of a new Mega Manila consortium for the EDSA busway. Drivers of motor vehicles may soon enjoy a 10-year validity of their license provided they have not committed any traffic violations. Meanwhile, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno closed a shop with items labeling Manila as province of China. More on these from Marita Mawahe.
The Land Transportation Office will soon allow driver's license that will expire in 5 years to double its current limit for drivers with clean records. LTO Assistant Secretary Edgar Galvante said starting October 2021, drivers looking to renew their licenses will be granted a 10-year validity if they have no records of road traffic violations. A demerit system is also going to be rolled out to further discourage road violations. In the new system, he said violations would be classified into 3 different categories: grave violations with 5 demerit points, less grave with 3 demerit points, and light violations with 1 demerit point. These demerits would accumulate for the duration of the person's driver's license validity and may result in fines, penalties, or more severe sanctions. Meanwhile, healthcare workers in Metro Manila will soon be able to bike from their homes to their places of work and vice versa. This as the DOTR plans to complete several interim bicycle lanes by Wednesday next week. An interim bicycle lane network will be built along Taft Avenue, Carino Avenue, Ross Boulevard, and United Nations Avenue. In Quezon City, interim bicycle lanes will also be established from Viluna to East Avenue, Elliptical Road to Araneta Avenue via Quezon Avenue, and Commonwealth Avenue to Elliptical Road. A protected bicycle lane will also be established along EDSA. In other news, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso ordered the closure of business establishments selling products with the label Manila Province of China. Domagoso said calling Manila as a province of China is unacceptable. He said that while it is true that the biggest Filipino-Chinese community in the country is in Binondo, he will never allow any foreigner to bully Manila. The business is said to be owned by 2 Chinese nationals and 3 Filipinos. Authorities identify the Chinese nationals as Shi Zongxing and Shi Li. Domagoso said he wanted the 2 Chinese to be deported back to China. The FDA is also set to cancel its license to operate due to the various issues. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muaje.
Still to come, Malacanang says it will let legal process take its course in the killing of 4 military officers by cops in Sulu. Baguio City opens its first e-eskwela hub at Burnham Park. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. Malacanang on Thursday said it will let legal process take its course over the death of 4 military officers in the hands of 9 police officers in Sulu last June. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made the statement after Armed Forces Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Gilbert Gapay expressed dismay that no charges have been filed in court against the police officers who were involved in the killing of the 4 soldiers. Roque assured Gapay that President Rodrigo Duterte himself vowed justice for the slain soldiers and their families. He said the National Bureau of Investigation has finished their investigation and filed 4 counts of murder and planting of evidence against the 9 cops. During a Senate hearing, Gapay alleged that there was an attempt on part of the police to cover up the misdeeds of the police officers involved in the fatal shooting of 4 soldiers. A laboratory that can conduct testing for COVID-19 has opened in Malolos, Bulacan. Meanwhile, Bacolod welcomes the opening of more Kadiwa outlets in the city. More on this and other news from the provinces from Chris Mundo.
The Bulacan Molecular and Diagnostic Laboratory located at the Bulacan Medical Center in Malolos City can now start COVID-19 testing. The facility can accommodate 96 tests per run in the span of 3 to 4 hours using the PCR machine. Those who want to avail the services of the laboratory can call 791-0630, local 139, or email at bmcmolecularlab@yahoo.com for laboratory scheduling. Meanwhile, the Department of Science and Technology in Central Luzon has distributed 48 units of pull-type rice transplanter to selected farmer groups in the region. The distribution of the transplanters is a component of the Smarter Hybrid Rice Production Project under the DOST's Community Empowerment through Science and Technology. The DOST's technology intervention also includes the use of appropriate hybrid rice variety, double mulching technique in seedling preparation, and carrageen and plant growth promoter, which are aimed at improving the yield per hectare to up to 200 kavans. The project is scheduled to be implemented in the different provinces in the region in the fourth quarter of this year. In Bacolod City, more Negrense Kadiwa outlets are opening in various locations in this city with the Federation of Multi-Sectoral Alliance for Development at the helm of marketing efforts since last month. 3 more outlets were added as of Thursday. These include those located in Ayala Mall's Capital Central, across the provincial capital, Barangay Alihis, and Petron Redemptorist on BS Aquino Drive. Provincial Agriculturist Japet Mascolino said the provincial government recognizes the need for a complete value chain for agricultural products from production to marketing. MUWAD will also open 4 additional outlets in various Petron gas stations in Bacolod. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
Baguio City has opened its first e-eskwela hub at the public library in Burnham Park. The city government, the Ang Provinciano Party List, and Front Row Enterprises led the opening of the e-eskwela hub on Thursday. APPL Representative Ronnie Ong said the hub, which was made possible through public-private partnership, is the first of several that will be established in Manila, Pasig, Visayas, and Mindanao. The hub will provide free use of computers, internet access, and printing of modules and other paperworks needed by students to meet the blended learning system this coming school year. He said similar e-eskwela hub will be opening next week in Camotes Island in Cebu Province. During the launch, Mayor Benjamin Magalong said several challenged students will be able to avail of the services of the hub, which will be open to students at all levels, including the teachers. In our business news, the provincial government of Cebu is set to roll out the assistance program for at least 20,000 micro-businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The program will enable workers who were displaced from their domestic or international jobs and residents who belong to the lowest 20% income group to start or recover their economic enterprises. The program launch will jumpstart the acceptance of applications both online and offline. The Department of Trade and Industry is providing technical assistance to the capital for the project. The capital, in partnership with DTI, will grant to qualified micro-entrepreneurs or beneficiaries their negosyo kits, which will utilize coupons that can be used to redeem goods worth 5,000 or 10,000 pesos as their seed capital. Governor Gwendolyn Garcia said her office expected 80,000 applicants for the assistance program. Up next, the Interagency Task Force wants standardized compensation for participants of clinical trials for the COVID-19 vaccine. And a seafarer in Pangasinan turns to mushroom farming for his family amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases seeks to standardize compensation of individuals who take part both in the World Health Organization Solidarity Trial and independent clinical trials for COVID-19. The IATF-EID on Thursday said the Philippine Health Research Ethics Board should review the ethical guidelines for the clinical trials and standardize compensation of trial participants. On Wednesday, Science and Technology Undersecretary Rowena Cristina Guevara floated the possibility that a COVID-19 vaccine might be available in the Philippines by the second quarter of 2021. Guevara said clinical trials in the country would involve the vaccine developed by Russia and others that pre-qualified as part of the Solidarity Trial. Clinical trial participants only get a measly amount of money for the food and transportation as compensation for the time they spend for the trial. The Philippines is expected to carry out clinical trials Phase 3 for 4 or 5 vaccines that have passed WHO's pre-qualification process. In other news, the Department of Foreign Affairs has lodged a diplomatic protest against China after Chinese Coast Guard illegally confiscated some Filipino fishermen's equipment at the Scarborough Shoal or Bajo de Masinloc last May. The DFA on Thursday did not elaborate on the incident, but said the CCG illegally seized the Filipino nationals' fish aggregating devices called payaos. It then castigated China's continuing illicit issuances of radio challenges to Philippine aircraft conducting legitimate regular maritime patrols in the West Philippine Sea. In a 2016 landmark decision, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled that both Filipinos and Chinese, as well as other fishermen from other countries, have traditional fishing rights at Scarborough Shoal. Since the standoff between some Chinese ships and the Philippine Navy in 2012, China has maintained a steady presence in the area. Filipino fishermen were only able to operate back after Manila's pursuit of friendlier ties with China in 2016. The Philippines since 2018 had been pushing for a permanent fishing agreement at the Bajo de Masinloc. Residents of Sison Town in Surigao del Norte town held an indignation rally against the Communist New People's Army for Police Staff Sergeant Resti Dandan, who was abducted and found dead on August 19. Wednesday's rally was led by Sison Mayor Carissa Fetalvero Paronia, together with the other local and police officials led by Captain Giovanni M. Tindoy, Chief of Sison Municipal Police Station. Representatives from the religious sector and other stakeholders also joined the indignation rally. Colonel George Banson, commander of the Army's 91st Infantry Brigade, expressed support to the move of local residents in the area. Banson said, "Is the right time to be united and stand against the abuses and violence of the communist NPA terrorists." Meanwhile, 5 communist NPA rebels operating in the Zamboanga Peninsula area have surrendered to the Army's 102nd Infantry Brigade. The 5 belong to the NPA's Western Mindanao Regional Party Committee. The former rebels turned over 2 AK-47 assault rifles, 8 magazines, and 245 live ammunition when they surrendered. Major General Generoso Ponyo, 1st Infantry Division Commander, said this is the best time for NPA fighters to lay down their arms and return peacefully to their communities. Several provinces are tightening security measures to protect their respective hog industries while on the lookout for the possible entry of African swine fever. Here is our report from Janice Cave.
The City Veterinary Office of Legazpi City is preventing the entry of hogs coming from Camarines Sur to Legazpi City after recently confirmed cases of African swine fever in Nabua town there. CVO Chief Dr. Emmanuel Estepona said the city's AA slaughterhouse is now on red alert status in connection with the cases of ASF in some parts of Camarines Sur. He already requested the 70 village chiefs to monitor stockyards at their respective areas. Estepona added that he would also ask meat vendors to refrain from buying hogs from Camarines Sur to prevent the entry of ASF. In General Santos City, online sellers of processed meat and other related products are now required to secure permits from the city government and other regulatory agencies. Executive Order No. 40, issued on August 10 by Mayor Ronald Rivera, aims to regulate the selling of processed meat products in the wake of the recent outbreaks of ASF in North Cotabato and parts of Davao Region. All products sourced from other localities and consigned to unlicensed traders will immediately be confiscated and destroyed upon entry. Violators will face a fine of 3,000 pesos for the first offense and 5,000 pesos for the succeeding offenses. Meanwhile, the Davao City Veterinarian's Office said it has intensified monitoring activities in all public markets here to ensure that pork meat and pork processed products are free from ASF. This came after CVO and FDA found traces of the ASF virus in samples of tocino, chorizo, and lumpiang Shanghai sold in Bangkirohan. Samples taken from the chorizo and tocino products from Agdao, Turil, Mintal, Kalinan, Panakan, and Tibungo public markets tested negative for ASF. The CVO is also closely monitoring hog farms in Marilog and Kalinan districts following an ASF outbreak in neighboring areas of Magpet and Arakan towns. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
A seafarer in Dagupan City, Pangasinan has turned to mushroom farming to provide his family's income while he was not on board vessels overseas due to the pandemic. Ricky Calagin said he started growing mushrooms in January this year, even before the lockdown. Calagin said his last employment on board a ship was last September, and he is undecided yet whether to return to overseas work due to the pandemic. His wife and 3 children have developed more products made from mushrooms, such as crispy mushroom chicharon, puto with mushroom, mushroom tempura, and sisig. The family mushroom farming business has brought benefits during the lockdown, as there are no other available jobs during the pandemic. Calagin hopes to expand the business to cover most of the family's expenses. He said he plans to seek support from national government agencies to grow the business. The Department of Agriculture Philippine Carabao Center will formally launch its Milky Bun Production Center by September this year. The facility could generate livelihood for farmers amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The project is in line with the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act and the DA's Aon Lahat Pagkain Sapat kontra sa COVID-19. The DA-PCC developed the Milky Bun, a nutrient-rich bread made with fresh Carabao's milk. One of Milky Bun contains protein and carbohydrates equivalent to 1 glass of milk. The DA-PCC collaborated with San Miguel Foundation in providing free flour to Katalanakan Multipurpose Cooperative, one of the assisted cooperatives of the agency. Last May, the SMF brought fresh Carabao's milk from farmer cooperatives struggling to cope with the pandemic, which was then donated to poor communities and food banks in and around Metro Manila and neighboring areas. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The Senate ratifies the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, or Bayanihan 2, while the House prepares to ratify it by August. The Land Transportation Office is set to allow drivers with clean records to have 10-year licenses. Malacanang says it will let legal process take its course in the killing of 4 military officers by cops in Sulu. And a seafarer in Pangasinan turns to mushroom farming for his family amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And at this point, we would like to greet our beloved PCOO Secretary, Secretary Martin Andanar, a very happy birthday. Stay safe from all of us at the PNA. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day, stay safe, and happy weekend, everyone.